Hello and welcome to this video on incremental fit indices in confirmatory factor analysis and structural equation modeling. My name is Geiser. I'm an instructor and statistical consultant with QuantFish, and on this channel I present weekly statistics tutorials. On Tuesdays I usually present an analysis in the Mplus software, and on Thursdays I talk about more general issues in multivariate statistical analysis, including factor analysis, structural equation modeling, multi-level analysis, and latent class modeling. If this is something that interests you, then please subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to hit the like button and to check out the description for additional free resources, including a link to my weekly statistics newsletter as well as courses that I teach for QuantFish. In this video, I want to talk about the TLI and CFI fit indices in factor analysis and structural equation modeling. These indices are also known as incremental fit indices or relative fit indices. And so in this video, I want to explain what this means, why they're called incremental fit indices or relative fit indices, how they work, and I will also give you two examples where these indices were used to look at model fit of two-factor analytic models. So let's get started here, and let's talk about, first of all, conceptually, what do these incremental fit indices do? What are they good for? What are they based on? With these fit indices, we compare the fit of our target model, for example, a factor model that we hypothesize for our data, with the fit of a so-called baseline or independence model. And so here I will use the abbreviation T for the target model, so that's our model that we believe in, so to say, and I will use I for the independence model, which is a specific model that is also fit to the data, so to say, automatically by our factor analysis or structural equation modeling software, such as, for example, Mplus or Lavan. And this baseline or independence model is one where we assume that the variables have no covariances, that all covariances between the variables are zero. And so this is a very restricted model where the idea is that the variables can only have variances, but there are no relationships between the variables. And so we compare then the fit of our model, which typically postulates that there are relationships between variables, that there are non-zero covariances in the population, to the fit of a very minimalistic model that assumes that there really aren't any relationships to be modeled. The most well-known and most used incremental fit indices at the moment at least are the so-called Tucker-Lewis index TLI, which is also known as the non-normed fit index or NNFI. So those are the same indices, the TLI and the NNFI. And then there's also the so-called comparative fit index or CFI, which works in a similar way. And there are older indices, the GFI and AGFI, so goodness of fit index and adjusted goodness of fit index, which are no longer in use because they've been shown to be too optimistic about model fit in general. So they make pretty much any model look good, and so people don't use these indices anymore so much, but people use the TLI and the CFI a lot, and so we want to take a look at those here in this presentation. So the TLI has this formula, or this formula can be used to calculate the TLI based on the chi-square value for the independence model and the degrees of freedom for the independence model, as well as the chi-square value for our target model and the degrees of freedom for the target model. Remember that the chi-square is an overall test of significance that tests the hypothesis that our model fits exactly in the population. So for example, the target model fits exactly in the population. And so in addition to that chi-square test for our target model that we obtain in structural equation modeling software, we also obtain a chi-square for the independence model. Now your software may or may not give you that chi-square for the baseline or independence model. For example, Mplus does. In the Mplus output file you get both the target model chi-square and the independence model chi-square, but not all software programs for SEM will give you this independence model chi-square. But however, so say these are the two values that are used behind the scenes when calculating the TLI and the CFI index. And so you can see here from this formula that the difference between the chi-square to DF ratio for the independence model and the chi-square to DF ratio for the target model goes into the numerator here for the TLI. And so the numerator will get larger when the chi-square value for the independence model is, or as this chi-square value for the independence model to DF ratio becomes larger than the same ratio for the target model. And so remember that the chi-square is a badness of fit index. The worse a model fit, the larger the chi-square value will be. And so when the target model, or when the independence model, I should say, the baseline model fits a lot worse than the target model, then this difference will be magnified. So then you will have a large value in the numerator because there will be a large difference when this ratio on the left hand side is much larger than the ratio on the right hand side. And so then, so say this index will become larger, indicating better fit. Now the TLI ranges roughly between 0 and 1. It can get larger than 1, but so that's the typical range, 0 to 1, where 0 indicates bad fit and values close to 1 indicate good fit. Typically, one would say that these the TLI values should be above 0.95 or even above 0.97 for a well-fitting model. So anything that goes below 0.95 already indicates that the fit is not spectacular. And then definitely when you have something that's below 0.9, we would say, this does not look super good. And we'll look at an example where you can see this. So roughly the range here is between 0 and 1, and we're aiming for values that are close to 1. The CFI uses a different formula, but the same basic idea of comparing our target model chi-square and degrees of freedom to the independence or baseline model degrees of freedom. And so here you can see that in an ideal scenario, the difference between the chi-square value and the degrees of freedom would be 0 for the target model. That's to say when the chi-square, or even negative, when the chi-square value is smaller than the degrees of freedom for the target value. That would be a good situation. So say when our chi-square for the target model is really small, really close to 0 ideally, then what is here in the numerator becomes 0, and then the index becomes 1. So that would be a great scenario. So say when we have a model that has a very low chi-square for our target model. And so again, the CFI ranges between 0 and 1, where 0 would indicate horrible fit and values close to 1 would indicate great fit or good fit. And again, we are looking to find values that are 0.95 or greater. Some people say they should be 0.97 or greater. And again, as it goes below 0.95 or even below 0.9, we would say this is probably not a good model according to these indices. So let's take a look at an example where these were fit to actual, or these were used to judge the fit of actual models fit to actual data. And so the first model that we're looking at here is a single factor confirmatory factor analytic model for 4 observed variables y1 through y4. So the idea is here to test whether these 4 observed variables y1 through y4 are unidimensional, measure a single factor. And so I fit this model to the data using the Mplus software here. You could use other programs, of course, for structural equation modeling, and they would give you these results as well. And so when we fit this model, the single factor model, to the 4 variables, we obtain a target model chi-square test of model fit that looks like this. You can see the chi-square value is 178.68 with 2 degrees of freedom, and that indicates terrible fit. So you wouldn't even have to look at the CFI or TLI in this case, because this is terrible. Obviously, when the chi-square value is so much larger than the degrees of freedom, and you can see it's highly significant based on the p-value here. So this model is clearly rejected according to the chi-square test of model fit. So we can already see it's horrible, and single factor model doesn't fit. But now let's still take a look at also the chi-square test of model fit for the baseline model, which is also provided by Mplus here under chi-square test of model fit for the baseline model. So this is the independence model chi-square, again, where a model is fit that assumes that all covariances between the 4 variables are 0 in the population. And that here was clearly not the case. So these variables were substantially correlated. So it made sense to fit a factor model, just not a single factor model. That was too restricted for these data, but definitely a factor model. But so then as a consequence, when we assume that there's independence between all 4 variables, linear independence, no covariances, then the chi-square value is even worse here than for our target model. You can see that here the value is 961.738 with 6 degrees of freedom. This model is more parsimonious because the 6 covariances between the 4 variables are all constrained to 0. And so that's even more parsimonious than a single factor model. But you get also a much worse chi-square value. So 961 is a lot larger than 178. And so this model fits even worse. So let's take a look at how this then translates into TLI and CFI values in the Mplus software, which are also provided as part of the model fit output in Mplus. And you can see that the CFI here is 0.815, the TLI is 0.445. Both of them look terrible. So that's terrible fit. You would not want to publish a model like this and claim that the fit was adequate, and people would say, oh no, this looks terrible, your model does not fit, and you might have bias in your parameter estimates because what you estimated here is not at all in line with the data. So clearly the single factor model for these 4 variables is rejected. Next, I fit a 2-factor model, which, as we will see, is a lot more reasonable. So here the assumption is that the first 2 variables, y1 and y2, measure a common factor, and the last 2 variables, y3 and y4, also measure a common factor, which is distinct from the first factor. The factors can be correlated, so there can be a relationship, but it's no longer assumed that f1 and f2 are perfectly linearly related, as was implied by the single factor model. So this correlation here between f1 and f2 could be anything. It could be 0, it could be 0.5, it could be close to 1, but it need not be 1.0 as would be implied by a single factor model. So this model is less restricted, and let's take a look at the chi-square values first of all for this 2-factor model. And you can see that for the 2-factor model, the value is 0.165. That's the value of the test statistic, the chi-square, and that's a lot smaller than what it was for the single factor model, where it was 178. Now we have 1 degree of freedom less here because we're now adding additional parameters to this model, but this model fits a lot better than the single factor model here. The baseline model chi-square, of course, is the same because we're fitting the same data, and the assumption is the same, that all covariances are 0, so you get the exact same chi-square test statistic of 961 for your baseline or independence model. Again, with the CFI and TLI incremental fit indices, the chi-square value and degrees of freedom for a target model at the top are being compared to the chi-square value and degrees of freedom of the independence or baseline model at the bottom. And let's take a look at how this turns out in this case. And so you can see now the CFI is 1.0, the TLI is also 1.0, so that would indicate great fit, and that's because the chi-square value for our target model is now so small and so much smaller compared to the independence model chi-square. When we go back, we can see this again. You can see that here the chi-square value, the test statistic, the value of the test statistic for the target model is even smaller than the degrees of freedom, which then automatically makes the CFI go to 1.0 according to the formula. And so this is a really small chi-square test statistic, and then this of course is large, and so the relative fit relative to this baseline model is very good. And now you can also understand why this is called relative fit index or incremental fit index, because it looks at the incremental fit when we are proposing a structure as opposed to proposing no structure for the covariances. The independence model proposes that there's no structure of the covariances such that, so say, there's no linear association, no linear relationship between any of the variables, so that's so to say an unstructured covariance matrix, or one where all, at least the off-diagonal elements are 0, whereas our target model proposes a structure for the covariances, and so then it looks at the incremental fit of that, doing that relative to proposing no structure for the covariances. And you could see that with a single factor model, the proposed structure was not so much better, so a single factor model didn't fit really that much better than no structure at all, and so that was shown by the CFI and TLI, and of course also by the chi-square already. And then the two-factor structure did provide substantial incremental fit above and beyond an independence model, as you can see here from those values being 1.0, meaning a two-factor model is a lot better than no model at all and no covariance structure where the covariances are 0. I hope you found this video useful to learn more about incremental fit indices in confirmatory factor analysis and structural equation modeling. If you did, then please subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to hit the like button and to check out the description for additional resources, and I'll see you next time.